A 5-point guide to distribution. Getting paid for your art is the dream, but living the dream takes work. In order to earn money when your fans hear your music, you need to make sure you get the distribution right and comply with the big book of streaming platform rules. It's all about getting your best work out of the door and into digital stores so you can sit back and let the cash roll in. But how do you make sure you tick all the boxes? What can and can't you do when you release your precious brainchildren? In this short video, we'll walk you through things to consider when deciding on a release date, exporting the right kind of sound file and why it matters, making sure your artwork and images are on point, and licensing for covers and samples. Warning: if you're planning to release a cover or a track that uses samples, you might want to skip ahead to this part now to make sure everything's legit. 1. Please don't release me at the last minute. Easier said than done, we know. But hear us out a sec. You've been working hard on your latest track and you can't wait to let your baby fly, so it's tempting to release your music ASAP. But 7 days is the absolute minimum lead time we need to distribute your release, and ideally, we'd have even longer. Warning: we strongly recommend you give yourself a release date countdown of at least 15 days. Any less, and you run the risk of missing out on vital promo. And if we spot a mistake that needs to be corrected, you might miss your chosen date anyway. Choosing a release date weeks in advance allows you to find out what kind of promo you should be doing and how much time you'll need to do it, pitch your release to playlisters and bloggers, engage with your fan base to prepare them for the release. Engagement is where the distribution magic starts. Get a buzz going on your socials. Why put your work onto global platforms if the world doesn't know where to find it? If you have time to work through your checklist, you can really make a splash when your track is finally released. Don't forget, Beatchain hype links are an easy way to share your tracks across multiple sites. You can also create a fan builder campaign to make sure they reach the right people, or access our advanced analytics to discover how your promo efforts translate into sales and streams. 2. Choose WAV. MP3s have their plus points. They're compressed, which makes them great to send across the net. But their smallness does limit sound quality. I mean, you wouldn't expect a mouse to sing an opera, would you? Whatever. Just make sure you export your tracks as WAVs, not MP3s, so we can deliver your music to platforms and stores at the highest possible quality. Technically, the files need to be. Oh, and unless you're Simon and Garfunkel, avoid the sound of silence. Always check the start and end of your track for dead air. More than a couple of seconds either side will mean it gets rejected. 3. Get the picture. A word about artwork. Most streaming platforms have guidelines for artwork, because the last thing they or you want is confusing, misleading, or offensive content that will make you look unprofessional. Here are the main things you need to consider when getting the artwork right. A picture's worth 1,000 words, or at least it certainly can be, because you don't actually have to include any text on your cover art. Warning: if your art is a single block of color, you will need some words on there. It can't just be a monochrome square. If you do add text to your artwork, make sure it's a word-perfect match of the metadata you've entered for the release. The text has to match exactly as you entered it. You can't add $signs if they're not in the metadata. But keep it brief. It's not an Amazon wish list. Here's a quick rundown of the kinds of things you can and can't include. Artist name, featuring artists, as long as they appear on every track. Release name, version information, explicit content badge. This is optional, but if you go for it, use a standard badge and don't edit it. A web address or any contact info, pricing or ads information, details of your social or streaming platforms, an artist who is not on the release, any text that is not in the metadata. Warning: blurry or hard to read text is a surefire way to get your release rejected. Size does matter, but not size alone. Font style and color and the color of your background all affect text legibility. We're not saying it has to be boring, and we're definitely not suggesting Comic Sans. Just make sure whatever you choose can be read with ease, even as a thumbnail. 4. Image is everything. Here's the bottom line. If you don't own it, don't use it. A copyrighted image is a big fat no-no. And keep it clean, please, folks. No violence or pornography. No watermarks either, please. Finally, unless you're Picasso or you're sure you know what you're doing, don't stretch your images. 9 times out of 10, it just makes them look weird. Warning, be careful when using filters or blur effects. The line between informed aesthetic choice and amateur hour is a canyon. Don't trip and fall into the void by working with a low-res original. Make sure you start with a high-res image. Then ask yourself, do the corners and lines look smooth? What happens if I open it on a monitor? Can I zoom in without seeing pixels? Check out this example. These images are identical in size, but the one on the right is all blurry. And if you look closely at the top of Anthony's head, you can see blocks of color where it should just be smooth. Using quality images lets your fan base know they can trust you to produce quality music. 5. We're gonna need to see your license. Samples and covers are a great way to get noticed online. But if you actually want to distribute a cover or a track that uses samples, things can get sticky pretty quick. The lowdown on covers. To distribute a cover, you have to buy a mechanical license, credit the songwriter, and the recording owner, who'll be due a cut of the royalties. Miss a step and your track will get rejected. It really is as simple as that. You can pick up a mechanical license for less than the price of a takeaway. Just make sure you apply at least a week before you submit your release to us to make sure your cover is, covered. Okay, samples. Warning. To distribute music that samples another artist's work, you will need permission from both the recording owner, which is usually the record company, and the songwriter. This makes samples near impossible to distribute unless you have A, a personal connection to the artist, or B, a ton of money and clout. Don't shoot the messenger. What about non-musical samples? The same rules apply across the board. That iconic advert from your childhood might provide the perfect soundbite, but unless you have permission from the creator and the owner, you're gonna have to go a different route. What if I just want to put it out there for free? No es posible, amigo. If we distribute your work, we have to monetize it. Well, we did warn you. If you cover these 5 bases, you should wind up on the corner of Easy Street and distribution. If you veer off track, our dedicated distribution team are on hand and happy to help. So there you have it. All you need to know is sign up to Beatchain for free, link your social media accounts, distribute your music to global streaming platforms. Simple, huh? Might as well start now.